You heard the party from down the street. You just weren't invited. That's what it was like growing up in the shadow of the boomers. They had Woodstock, they had the Summer of Love, they had Vietnam protests and civil rights marches, and the whole world watching. You had a TV set and a bowl of cereal and a Saturday morning cartoon lineup. They were out there changing everything. You were 8 years old watching it happen through a screen. That's not the same thing. Not even close. Were you more Clash or more Bee Gees? Drop it in the comments. Let's find out who you really were. Your Generation Jones. Born between 1954 and 1964. Not a boomer, not Gen X. Something else entirely. 53 million Americans who spent decades getting lumped in with people up to 18 years older, who had absolutely nothing in common with them. Bogus doesn't even cover it. The name tells the whole story. Keeping up with the Joneses, being just another face in a massive anonymous crowd. But the real origin is the word jonesing, that deep, hungry craving for something just out of reach. You were told as a kid that everything was possible, the whole world was opening up, America was unstoppable. Then you grew up. You didn't read about hard times in a textbook, you lived them, you felt them. High prices at the grocery store your mum couldn't stretch far enough. Mortgage rates so gnarly your parents couldn't refinance. A recession that landed right when you were trying to figure out your first real job. Your older siblings walked into a boom. You walked into a wall. That's not a metaphor. That's what actually happened. You were old enough to understand Watergate. Old enough to sit in front of that TV and watch a president look the entire country in the eye and lie, then resign. You were old enough to feel that land. The oil crisis hit. The hostage crisis dragged on for 444 days. Factories started closing. Cities started hollowing out. The whole vibe of the country shifted, and you felt every single bit of it right in your gut during the years that were supposed to be your best ones. One journalist nailed it. The boom generation has two totally different halves, boomer classic and boomer reboot. The difference comes down to sex, drugs, and rock and roll plus economics and war. No duh. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates didn't wait for someone to hand them the future. Both Joneses. Both built the world you're reading this on right now. Rad doesn't even begin to cover it. And the music. Dude, the music. Punk and new wave weren't accidents. They were Generation Jones screaming back at a world that broke its promises. Johnny Rotten didn't write those songs because things were going great. Elvis Costello wasn't angry for no reason. The Clash weren't singing about peace and love because peace and love had already checked out. These were your people, kids who watched the dream fall apart and picked up guitars instead of flowers. That was clutch. That was real. You were the first generation raised on television. Not just around it. On it, Star Trek, The Brady Bunch, Happy Days, Gilligan's Island. That screen was your babysitter, your teacher, and your best friend all at once. You were the first latchkey kids. You put that key in the lock yourself. Nobody was waiting on the other side. You figured out dinner. You figured out homework. You figured out everything. That was just Tuesday. Their movies were about flower power and finding yourself. Yours were Jaws and Star Wars and Rocky and Saturday Night Fever and Animal House. Totally different hunger. Totally different world. 53 million of you in America right now. 1.05 trillion in spending power. At the peak of your careers or walking into retirement having earned every single cent of it the hard way, you sit right between boomer idealism and Gen X toughness, and that makes you wicked, hard to pin down, and impossible to ignore. Some researchers still want to lump you in with the boomers, as if. Critics say generational labels are made up. And yeah, whatever, maybe they've got a point. But that still doesn't explain why millions of people born in that window have been saying the same thing their whole lives without anyone telling them to. That doesn't describe me. The boomer label never fit, never came close. You were wide-eyed in the 60s, not tie-dyed. You were promised the American dream and handed an interruption instead. You didn't fold. You didn't wait for someone to fix it. You figured it out the same way you figured out everything else. Alone. With the door locked behind you. On your own terms. After decades of being invisible, squeezed between two generations that got all the attention and all the ink and all the think pieces, you finally got a name. Generation Jones. You never needed anyone to hand you anything. This is no different. The name was always yours. You just didn't know it yet.